Hello YouTube, Skippy here, coach of your Steel City Surge. We are back with another Draft League series, this time running it back with WPF, World Pokemon Federation, in their Delta Division once again. We are back for Season 17 of WPF and Season 4 of Delta specifically, so special thanks for the invite back, and to our mods, Zom and Gentleman Thomas, for running the division. Also, real quick, special shout out to Zav, who does pretty much everything graphic-wise relating to this channel. Huge thanks and huge shout out of support to him. He puts a lot of time and effort into helping me and this channel get ready for battles, as well as get ready for uploads. So, just a big shout out to him real quick as well. Real quick, if you aren't familiar with Pokemon Draft Leagues, the way they work is 16 coaches take turns selecting Pokemon in a set order that usually follows the snake format. This means the first overall pick of the last round becomes the last pick of the next round, and the last pick of the current round becomes the first pick of the next round. So it essentially flip-flops going both directions. Every coach will have 110 points to draft 9 to 11 Pokemon for their roster, with 30 separate points to be used between two different Terra Captains, up to two different Terra Captains. So essentially those two would have to have their point totals add up to a maximum of 30 points in order to be considered a Terra Captain. These captains can use any Terra type, but will need to disclose what type we are bringing before each match of every week. So right before searching for a match, I have to disclose to my opponent what Terra types I'm bringing on my Terra Captains, so that way they know what they're up against. Also, this is an upload league, so keep an eye out for the weekly battles on Fridays over the next 8 weeks. Any and all support would be greatly appreciated. Like I said before, a lot of time and effort goes into not only the uploads themselves, but the battles themselves as well, between preparation and communication and scheduling and all that stuff. So any support for those videos would be greatly appreciated, as well as this one. Now, getting to the draft. Of the 16 coaches, we finally have a great draft spot, snagging the 4th overall pick. There were some really great options available, with only one technical surprise in the top 3. So I had some of the premier options available to me. However, one of them had caught my eye that I've been wanting to use for a little bit. We got Terra Raging Bolt. It gets access to every Terra type imaginable, which is insanely good. And for 21 points, this feels like an absolute no-brainer. It's got 125 HP, 91 defense, and 89 special defense. This thing is an absolute tank. Combine that with any Terra type to give me a resistance to any of Raging Bolt's weaknesses, we should be a nightmare for opponents to break. It may only have 75 base speed, but when you have a stab priority attack that is considered special Sucker Punch, I think we'll be fine. Not to mention, it pairs well with that 137 base special attack that will make most coaches think twice before switching into this guy at any given moment. Now, we had to wait a little while for our next pick being the 4th overall. And, however, of everything that was picked, I think we got probably one of the best options to pair with Raging Bolt. That being Iron Treads. This Steel type for my Dragon Fairy Steel Core, and it's also a great solid ground type with Hazard Control. I usually struggle with Hazard Control on my draft team, so having this guy fall to me, it feels amazing. This futuristic Tusk can cover so many different roles for us, and gives us the way to check fairy types for somewhat well for Raging Bolt, so that way we don't have to run Terra Steel every other week to try to check those fairy types. It also has some really good coverage moves and provides some good knockoff support as well, so that's very nice and appreciated from Iron Treads. Swinging back around, we missed out on a potential physical breaker that would have paired really well with Raging Bolt in Urshifu Rapid Strike. However, a mon that has had some resurgence recently fell right into our laps. That mon is Weavile. This fast, dark, and ice type allows us to hit the ground and grass types pretty hard for Raging Bolt that kind of checks it, as well as for Iron Treads, and provides a very fast speed tier, hitting a base 125 speed. With 120 base attack to pair with that speed, Special Walls won't like taking hits from it. And it even gets access to some stab knockoff as well to provide some additional support. Now, we had to wait a while for our next pick once again, and in the process of waiting, we missed out on a potential great roster option in Screamtail. I don't know if I'm ever going to get to use that guy. He would have been great to add to this team. And in my scramble to find a replacement pick, I wasn't really prepared for the obvious snipe, unfortunately. I did find this hidden gem in a sense. That is Grimmsnarl. I completely forgot about the Devil Fairy. With Prankster Parting Shot, everything that isn't a dark type or able to bounce back the effect of Parting Shot which lowers both attack and special attack by 1 stage. Without the ability to block that, this thing will be able to get out of dodge and weaken opposing attackers. And then they have to deal with something else coming in place of Grimmsnarl at the start of that turn. Not to mention it gets access to both Reflect and Light Screen for setup support. It gets access to Taunt, Trick, and Thunder Wave as well. It's a true support team member, but it can also hit really hard with its base 120 attack and 95 special attack. He does get some good coverage moves too, which is wonderful, and he rounds out my Dragon, Steel, Fairy core as well, so that's nice and wonderful in of itself. And looking at my current roster, I saw that I didn't have a lot of special bulk available to me. I wanted to find something that was kind of tanky, and I don't mind weaknesses to Ghost and Dark since I now have Grimmsnarl, and I guess Weavile is also kind of there too. So I decided on another support option. Deoxys Defense. This guy has always intrigued me as a coach. He has a monster defense stat with 160 in both defense and special defense, and it has a 90 base speed, as well as 70 in both attacks. He gets access to every other move that all the Deoxys forms get access to, so it has access to hazards and extreme speed, which is really nice. And it also has teleport for slow pivoting purposes, and it's also really nice for a tanky mon to be able to take a hit and then swap out right away regardless of the speed stat, because teleport has minus priority. With access to double screens as well, and recover, as well as Thunder Wave, this guy can be supportive, and he also has access to some really good setup moves to become a setup sweeper as well. I'm very happy with this team at this point, and while a Brambleghast Snipe does technically hurt a little bit, it's not the worst thing in the world. I do get another, potentially better Grass Spinner instead of Brambleghast, that being Sarina. I haven't ever really thought about using Sarina before. It's kind of slow with 72 base speed, but it hits really hard with 120 base attack and has access to some really good coverage moves. The Queen starts my Fire, Water, Grass core and can be a very good slow pivot with U-turn access as well. Plus, it's a spinner. Now, I wanted to continue the Fire, Water, Grass core that I started with Sarina, and wanted something that could hit really hard, ideally like a fighting type. I was looking at Zapdos Galar, but that doesn't really fit with the Fire, Water, Grass core, and it would have been a solid pick anyway, but then I saw something else that was also available. Keldeo. The good horse was still available at this point in the draft. We're about 7 rounds into the draft, and this guy is still sitting there. It's better than Spectrier, in my opinion. That's why I call it the good horse. It doesn't have the best coverage as well. However, it's slightly faster than Iron Treads, and hits just about as hard as Raging Bolt on the special side of things with 129 special attack. Plus, it helps Raging Bolt with its checks as well, so it provides some good checks to the ground types that Raging Bolt doesn't really like, and Raging Bolt kind of deals with the bulky waters that Keldeo doesn't really like. So they kind of work nicely together in a nice tandem. Not to mention, getting Keldeo also rounds out a offensive Fighting, Dark, and Psychic core, going to Deoxys, Keldeo, and Weavile, so that's pretty nice as well. Now, we're getting really low on points. A lot of high-tier mons have been picked, higher mid-tier as well. So, I still wanted to get a solid fire type, and I have hazard removal, but I want to try to add to that. In past seasons, I haven't really added to hazard removal at all, and I really wanted to change that this season, so I ended up deciding with my next pick, I was going to snag Colossal. This thing gets access to Rapid Spin. It's a fire type. It works. The Fire and Rock type does give me more hazard options to pair with Iron Treads and Deoxys Defense, while also being another removal option for Treads and Sarina as well. It's decently bulky and has some really good coverage as well. And overall, it's just a nice lower tier pick to round out my Fire, Water, Grass core. So, yeah, that's that pick. Now, we're still decently low on points, and I kind of wanted to find something to bridge the speed gap between Keldeo and Weavile. So I scrounged around for a bit to find something that could fit. Eventually, I came across Ambipom. Honestly, he's just a fast normal type that bridges that speed gap and has some nice abilities with Technician and Skill Link. Can hit decently hard on the physical side with 100 base attack. And it's just a nice secondary Ghost Check as well to pair with Grimmsnarl. And it's a better option than Weavile to be another Ghost Check too. So that's mainly why I picked up Ambipom here. Now, I'm starting to see a slight tendency with most of my teams being ground weaknesses, and this team is no exception to that whatsoever. The only real way I have of dealing with ground is Sarina at the moment. And I wanted to pick up kind of a spin blocker as well. Colossal kind of counts being with Flame Body, but doesn't count. So I snagged an interesting pick as well, being Drift Blimp. Being a ghost and flying type, it covers both roles nicely, and being a check to ground types as well as rapid spinners. And there's a couple of fun sets that I can run with him since he has a lot of support and coverage options. So it can be setup, it can be coverage, it can be support, it can be pretty much anything I really need it to be. He also gets access to defog as well, so that kind of adds to that hazard removal and hazard control that I really wanted on this roster. So that's pretty nice. And lastly, we do have another point. We have one more point remaining, and we haven't selected our second Terra Captain either. It's honestly cool too, because this guy has kind of become a mascot for me at this point over the past couple months, even in the last year. And I mean, my Discord profile picture is essentially this guy. So we snagged Cramorant with free Terra. Cranks! We get him with free Terra too, for basically nothing. I mean, Terra Cranks is 1 point, and we had 1 point left over. We may as well, right? He might not show up to every match, but with him being on the roster, it should force my opponents to kind of respect him. Gulp Missile can be very annoying to deal with, and with free Terra, this thing can do pretty much anything, so. With that last selection of Cramorant, that rounds out the final roster for the season of WPF. I know we don't really have a grounded poison type, or just a poison type in general, and we were missing a little bit of a speed gap between Deoxys and Iron Treads, but I think we'll be fine otherwise. If we need to, we can make some transactions. We do have 5 of those transactions, and we do have unlimited coaches traits as well, so we could work with that to adjust the roster if needed. But for right now, I am very, very happy with the team we've drafted. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, enjoy the weekly content from this season of WPF as well, and I'll catch you later for our Week 1 matchup. Peace.